Hello and welcome to the Introduction to Cabinet Vision Solid video series. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the Material Manager. Knowing what materials your parts are made of is a very important part of manufacturing. To set up our materials in Cabinet Vision, we have the Material Manager. To access this part of Cabinet Vision, we only need to click on the Material Command button in the Catalog's ribbon bar group. This displays the Material Manager window to us. Like other windows, we have the ability to maximize or restore the window size, as well as close the window. We also have a ribbon bar, a status bar, and a work area. The ribbon bar will contain the commands that we can use in the Material Manager. Let's go over them right now. The first command that we will go over is the Finish command. Clicking on that command will display the Finishes window. Here I can set up my finishes that I can apply to materials. This list shows all of the finishes that already exist in Cabinet Vision. When I select one, all of the values here change to match the finish that I want to work with. This button is the Search button. This allows me to easily search through the various finishes that are in Cabinet Vision. Once I find the one that I want to work with, I can just click the OK button and select it. Next, I have the New button. This allows me to create an all-new finish. If I want to copy a specific finish that I need to make slight changes to, I can select that finish as I've done, then click the Copy button. If I don't want to finish in my list anymore, I can just click the Delete button. Let's make a copy of this finish to see what all of this is and how it works. First, this is the name of the finish as it will appear in the list. This is the description where we would put any additional information that we don't want shown in the list. Next, we have the color selector. We can either select the color directly using our mouse, or we can use these sliders to specify an RGB or red, green, blue value for our color. This swatch, as they are called, is a sample of the finish we've created. The slider below it is a shade slider. We can use this to change the shade of our finish, which will cause all of the RGB values to change accordingly. Now, a simple note. Any of the changes that we've made are not yet saved. We can either select another finish or close this window to be prompted by Cabinet Vision to save our changes. This is nice for those times when we accidentally move a slider a little too much and can't get it right again. The next command is the Finish type. Now before I go any further, let me explain what the difference between finish and finish type is. Think of the finish as the base color of your finish. The finish type would be how that color reacts with light. Think of it in terms of painting. I can have a blue paint, and that would be my finish. Now I can have that in matte, eggshell, satin, and more, but it would still be blue. Now let's click on the Finish Type button to see how we can set these finish types up. As with the finishes, a new window is displayed. We have a list of finish types to select from, and we can create a new finish type, copy the currently selected one, or delete the currently selected one. If you haven't noticed, my controls here are grayed out. This is because I can't change any of my system finish types. Let's create a copy of this one so that we can go over the various properties of a finish type. As with the finishes, we can specify the name here, as it will appear in the list, as well as a description that contains additional information that shouldn't appear in the list. But we also have a bunch of sliders here. These sliders control how light reacts with this finish type. As we adjust these sliders, the preview here will change accordingly. Before I go over the sliders, I would like to explain the preview a little bit. This is a preview that will show you how a material will look with the selected finish, the type of light shining on it, how bright that light is, and with a specific texture applied with this finish type. So onto the settings. The first one is the shader property. This is the basic way how this finish type will work. Each shader will represent how the color will be generated on a material. Glass will generate color differently than wood. So choose the shader that represents the material this finish type will be applied to carefully. Next we have the sliders. The ambient slider defines the effect ambient light will have on this material. The diffuse slider defines how the light reflected from this material will affect its surrounding area. The specular slider defines how reflective the material is in terms of the tight rays that are reflected. The shininess slider defines how reflective the material is in terms of overall reflectivity. And finally, the transparency slider defines the amount of light that can pass through the material. Once we have set all of these values, we can either select another finish type or close this window to be prompted to save our changes. As a note, I want to point out that the properties of the finish type are a little more complex than what was described here. As such, it is a good idea that you take a look at your help files for more in-depth details on how all of these sliders work and what effect they will have on your finish type. The final command we will go over right now is the texture command. Whereas finishes and finish types represents colors and how light interacts with your material, a texture is an image that represents a pattern that will appear on your material. Let's open the texture manager now to see how it works. As you can see, it has a very similar user interface to the material manager. Let's go over the various sections of the texture manager now. First off, we can see these buttons here. These give us the ability to create a new texture, delete the selected texture, and control how textures appear in the texture list here. Now, no textures are appearing in our list at the moment. That's because I have no groups selected. The groups contained here are groupings of similar textures. While they may look totally different, they are representative of a specific type of material. Now that I have a group selected, I can create a new texture. This brings up the Import Texture window. The first step I must take is to select an image to create our texture from. Now that I've created a sample texture, we can see the preview of it here. I need to assign it a name that will appear in the texture list, then a description, if I need, as well as a world height and world width. These two values are how large the texture should be in real-world values, such as inches or millimeters. I need to tell Cabinet Vision whether or not this texture needs to be tiled, meaning that if the material is placed on a part with a size greater than the world height and width specified here, it should be repeated at its specified height and width. If we leave this unchecked, the texture will be stretched out. Some textures you will want to stretch, some you will want to tile. The sample I am using would be tiled as it's a repeating texture. Finally, we have the decal option. A decal texture is a texture that is unaffected by finish color. If your texture has a color value in it, like the one I am showing here, then you would likely want to make it a decal. But if your image has no color or is just black and white, you would likely not make it a decal as you would want the finish color to be blended in with the texture. Once we have set up our texture, we can click OK to add it to our list. Now the texture will be placed in the group that was selected. If we need it in another group, we would just click and drag it into the group we want to place it. Now we know how to create a new texture, but what about modifying existing textures? Well, it can be simply done by either double-clicking on the texture to edit its properties, or we can change the view of the texture list by clicking on this button here. Now we can edit each one of the properties of the texture in this list. As a note, you can see that I can't change the image associated with the texture. So if I needed to do that, I'd need to delete the texture and then recreate it. Now what's this section here, and how do the groups actually work? Well, since they are pretty much identical in operation to the sections here in the Material Manager, I'm just going to go ahead and close the Texture Manager so that we can go over the sections of the Material Manager now. So we know that these are groups, and as before, when I click on them, materials show up in the material list. Material groups are not tied to specific material types. Rather, consider them as containers that hold whatever you want. As such, we have a bunch of features for handling groups of materials. The first is the Create Group command. While I have a group selected, I can click this to create a subgroup. As you can see, it defaults to the name of New Folder. If I now right-click on this new group, we can see that I can either create a subgroup below it, delete this group, or rename this group. Let's rename it to something. Since this is a subgroup of drawer guides, let's rename this to Bloom. You'll see why I want to do this later on. So now that we have the subgroup renamed, let's go ahead and see what other commands here do. The first one we know creates a new group. The second one is the delete group command. Clicking this will delete our selected group. Next we have the move left and move right commands. These commands allow us to move the groups up and down the hierarchy here. For instance, let's say that we didn't want our Bloom group as a subgroup of drawer guides. We just click the move left command and now it's in the main group list. But if we wanted to move it back, we can click the move right command and the selected group will be placed in the group that it was underneath. Let's move the group back out to see that I can use these last two buttons, move up and move down, which are now enabled. These allow us to move a group up or down in the list. If our group was a subgroup with other subgroups in that parent group, it would allow us to move them up or down in the parent group as well. This gives us a lot of freedom for placement for groups in this list. Now let's put the Bloom group back under drawer guides. With that done, let's click on the drawer guides group to see all of our drawer guides. Now I can start moving my drawer guides into the Bloom group if I wanted. I just click and drag them in. But this would go a lot easier if I could just click and select multiple ones, or click them all, and drag it in. But I don't want to do that. As you can see, I do have some Accuride glides here in the bottom. So how can we make this a little bit easier? What we can do is create a quick search. To do so, we can just click in this text box here and type in Bloom, and on our keyboard press enter, and now you can see all of the materials that have the name Bloom in them show up in this list. But what if we wanted just Bloom 568 guides? Well, we can go here and we can put a space and type 568. When we press enter, now that narrowed our list of guides down quite significantly. What if we wanted nothing but H guides? That might be a little bit more complex. What we can use there is wildcards, like the question mark or asterisk. So for H guides, I could either do Bloom, question mark, question mark, question mark, H, and press enter. And now you'll see in my list, all of my guides are H guides. Now, instead of using 3 question marks, I can change it to an asterisk, H, and get the exact same result. That's because a question mark represents a single character, while an asterisk represents any number of characters. Now, we can select all of our drawer guides and just move them over into our group. When we select that new group, you can see I have all of my Bloom guides that I want in there. In some instances, having your materials in a separate group is the best option. But if I only need a way to search the materials instead of grouping them, I can create custom searches that I can save into Cabinet Vision. All I have to do is click on this Add Search button here, and the search dialog is displayed to us. This is the list of searches that already exist in Cabinet Vision. Since I have none, the list is empty. I can create a new search, copy the selected search, or delete the selected search. We're going to start this by creating a new search. We're then prompted by Cabinet Vision to give our search a name. I'm going to call it Accuride. I just need to click OK, and now I can set up the search. The Search On field allows us to define what part of the material we should be searching information for. If I click on it, you can see I can do the ID, name, description, or the last time it was updated. We're going to select Name. Then we have the Compare Using field. This is how the comparison is going to be made. Do we want it to equal something? Do we want it to not equal something? So on and so forth. We're going to select Similar To. The reason being, I don't want to type out the whole name of all of my guides. As a note, I would like to point out that any searches we do in this area here are similar to searches. Now the Compare To field is what I actually want to compare it to. So we will type in Accuride. Next up is the grouping field. If I wanted to include additional criteria, I could filter with an AND, saying that it should be Accuride and have some additional information. And I can also use the OR grouping, meaning I could say it has to say Accuride in the name or something else. For our purposes, I want to select none. And now if I would either create a new search, select a search in the list, or click OK to close this dialog, we're prompted to save the changes that we've made. I'm going to select yes. As you can see in my list here, I now have an Accuride search. And instead of having to type anything in, I can just click on that and the search is performed. If I need to edit this search or create any new ones, I can once again click on the Add Search button and then do what I need to do here. If I wanted to remove this search, I just click the Delete Search button and it'll remove it right from the list. So now we know about creating searches and how to work with these groups. I want to point out that if I open up the Texture Manager again, this search area and these groups work identically as they did here in the Material Manager. So now that we know about how searching works and how the groups work, let's take a look at the material list to see how this operates. To do that, let's go ahead and click on the Panel Stock group. As you can see, we have a lot of panel stock materials with a lot of different properties. Each material type will have its own set of properties that can be altered. There are several properties that materials share, but only two that all materials will have each time. This is the ID number and the name. The ID is a unique number for the material that Cabinet Vision will assign upon creation of that material. The name is the name, as it will appear in reports, bids, and the S2M center of a specific material. For a list of all the properties that each material type has, please refer to your help files for detailed descriptions on the materials. There is one last command that we did not cover in the ribbon bar, however, the Properties command. In the Material Manager, we have two ways to edit the properties of a material. The first is here in the list. The second is to select a material, then click on the Properties command to bring up the Material Properties dialog. Here you can change the properties of a material, and when you are done, you can close the window, or if you need to work with another material, just click on the Select command to select a material from the Material Manager. While I'm not going to cover all of the properties that each material gets, I would like to take the time to explain to you how some of the controls in this list work. As an example, I will hover my mouse over the Unit of Issue property. You should notice that I have a small box here. This denotes that this field has some kind of option for me to choose from. If I click on the field, you can see that the box changed to a down arrow. I can click on that arrow to pull up a list of choices for me to select from. Next, if I move to the Textures tab, I can hover over any of the fields here to see that same box. If I click on this field, however, you can see that there is an ellipsis button here. If I click on this, it will bring up the appropriate manager for me to select an option from. Going back to the Material tab, we can see that this control here has a small X in a box. This is a simple option box. An X in the box denotes a true value. So in the case of estimate, which is a property that ensures that Cabinet Vision will use this material in the bid center, the X means that it will be used in the bid center, while a blank box means that it won't be. Every other field in the list is a simple text entry field. You can just click on the field to edit any of the values that you need to edit. Any field that is grayed out cannot be edited. Thank you for taking the time to watch this Introduction to Cabinet Vision video. We hope that it was enjoyable and informative. Look for more videos in this series to get the most out of Cabinet Vision Solid. For any other questions you may have about Cabinet Vision Solid, please visit our website at www.cabinetvision.com.